Hi all, how are you? This is Monica Shimonik here with the Best Interests of the Parent. I'm super excited to be with you tonight for my weekly live stream. So we have a few new people that have just joined in the past few days, and I just wanted to introduce myself to all of you. So how are you? Thanks for coming on. Like I said, I'm Monica. I run a business called The Best Interests of the Parent, and I primarily work with parents that are the underdogs in the family court system. Some of the parents I work with are tangled up in CPS DCF court, but the vast majority are going through a tumultuous custody battle that's been going on for years and years and years. And the average parent finds me when they're about 2 to 3 years in. So I catch them pretty early in the process, which is really good. You don't want to be 5, 6, 7 years in before you start getting help. That's not a good thing. So if you're here, then you know that the family court system is designed on purpose to set yourself up to lose your rights and lose your dignity, lose your children, have all your money taken from you, have your property taken. You could potentially wind up homeless. You could wind up without your job. You could wind up with a breakdown, a social circle breakdown. Your relationships with your family and friends and intimate partners have probably changed. So there's a lot of losses and a lot of things that are being taken from you, extracted from you, and it could leave you feel really empty. And the aftermath of all of this can leave you left in a very agonizing psychologically traumatized state of being. So where I come in as a course creator and as a coach is I help you create a roadmap to healing and empowerment so that you could go back to court and take down these courtroom saboteurs and learn how to manage your ex better, with more of who you used to be before all this happened. So bring back your more powerful self into this equation. And what happens when you embody this new mindset, you no longer are a victim, you become a warrior. You step into this new warrior state. That happens actually pretty quickly. It doesn't have to take years. It could take like a weekend. And when you become a warrior in your case, you start to heal. You naturally start to heal your heart, your soul. You start to heal your finances, because when you're a warrior and you're standing up for yourself, you get to control where your money goes. You get to have more authority over your money, which is really awesome. And you serve as a role model for your children. So think about what that looks like. You're in this horrifying situation that has no oversight, has no reform, has been running the same way for 50 years. And when your kids watch you take down a system like this, your kids will be influenced to become warriors themselves when they get into situations that are untenable and unmanageable, when they become victims in a system. Maybe if they're in a bad situation with a boss or a coworker or an intimate relationship, or they're having an issue with their bank. Like for me, with all this stuff I've been through with the family court, I have no problem dealing with banks and other stupid businesses that try to screw you over. So today for this live stream, we're going to be talking about how parents often, 99% of the time, they approach the court and they're not asking the court for protection in any fashion. They're asking the court instead for the court's discretion. They're asking for discretion and not protection, which is, discretion is like the opposite of protection. When you're asking the judge to make an opinion about something, when you're having a problem and you want the judge to fix it, you're inviting discretion. Now, often we feel like that's our only choice. We feel like, well, if I have to ask the judge's opinion. I have no other choice. Like, what else am I going to do? You do have options. You could instead ask for protection. You could say, I'm only here to be protected. I don't want you to come in and make new opinions. I just want you to protect the rights that I have, or the rights that I'm supposed to have. So I'll give you a few examples. So we have parents that contact me. They're like, my ex just got a new job. My ex now works 60 hours a week instead of 40. And my child's daycare is a mile from my house, and my hours just changed, and I want more time with my child. So I'm going to ask the judge for more time because my ex is working all the time, and instead of my child being in daycare, I'm just going to ask the judge to let me have my child. So what you're doing is, you're asking the judge for the judge's opinion on what they think makes the most sense, because that's a lot of times parents will go to court for common sense reasons. Oh, it just makes sense to do it this way. And yes, it does. From every other normal functioning, business entity, that would make perfect sense. In family courts lose money when they solve problems. So when there's a situation where a parent is asking for the court's discretion so that parent could be more equal in the child's life, and like other things could be mitigated, like daycare expense could be mitigated, and the child's not stuck with strangers all day, and so that gets a little bit better. The child gets to be with the parent. So whenever a parent approaches the court and says, this new situation that I'm proposing, Your Honor, makes a lot of sense. I'm asking Your Honor to, create these new orders. So can you please do that? Here's kind of what you're doing. You're using common sense as your leader. You're leading with common sense. And understand, like I said, in any other entity in the planet, that's a really great strategy, and it's easy and it's simple, and it's not going to cost you $1 million. But in family court, when the family courts are solving problems and equalizing each parent's authority in the child's life and making each parent whole, okay, the court's going to lose money. The court needs a parent to be scathed in a little bit. The parent needs to be gouged out a little bit. The parent needs to feel like crap about themselves. The parent needs to be in a desperate mindset where they're clawing their way back into their child's life. The court needs that arrangement. If the court's not having that, then the court can't generate revenue. And the system, like the vendors and the systems, can't generate revenue. Guardians ad litem aren't going to have business if the court is solving problems using common sense. So when we approach the court saying, Your Honor, this makes sense, can you please enter this order? You're actually asking the court to go against their own business model, and the court isn't going to want to do that. So, and it's corrupt and stupid and ridiculous, I know. So, but we need to fix that. So that's like probably another live stream. So what you should do, in my opinion, this is not legal advice, it's just what I would do, because I have not seen common sense work. If common sense worked, we would not be in the situation to begin with. Everybody knows, every judges, legislators, lawmakers, people, even like cops, people that work in DCF, even people who make money on the system know this. Everybody, every thought leader, lawmaker, whatever, they know this to be true. The kids that grow up without fathers turn out to, they're more likely to be drug dealers. They're more likely to drop out of school. They're more likely to be depressed. They're more likely to get pregnant. And we don't see, and no one's fixing it. No one's fixing the problem. Instead, they want, they're fixing the problem by implementing more government services, more teen pregnancy centers, more youth suicide hotlines, more mental health services for kids. So they're fixing the problems by building new jobs for more people to intervene more in the kid's life, instead of restoring the core issue, which is that the child's missing one of their parents, which historically has been the father. Now we see kids growing up without their mothers as well. So it's now a motherless and a fatherless epidemic. But historically, we have always seen kids grow up without fathers. We've seen those kids run around in gangs, run away from home, wind up in shelters, wind up in foster care. We've seen those kids historically be troublemakers, and we have not fixed that. Okay, we haven't fixed that, because to this day, any parent can walk into court at any time and say, this relationship is dissolving. I want you to take away this parent's rights. And the judge will say, okay, well, let me get you a guardian ad litem. Let's figure out what you want, and let's figure out if this makes sense. And we'll bring an evaluator in, and we'll get psych evals for everybody. We'll put the kid in therapy. We'll get 8 people paid on a monthly basis because you're asking for some bullshit, like your ex to be cut out of your child's life. So the fact that parents have standing to ask the government to deprive another citizen of fundamental rights shows that we haven't done a single damn thing to solve this problem. So anyway, very long tangent, but understand that common sense isn't a legal strategy, for one thing, because there's nothing in the law that says if you use common sense, you're going to be protected. There's certainly nothing in the family law statutes that say that you're protected if you're using common sense. There's nothing even the Constitution doesn't say that if you lead with common sense, you're more protected. It doesn't make sense to use common sense in the family courts. So don't do that. I'm going to just urge you. I'm going to challenge you to stop using common sense as your strategy. Okay. Cause that's not a legal strategy. Okay. There's no legal strategy. That's just you trying to have a conversation with someone and trying to get them to see your point of view. Okay. And there's no incentive for the judge to see your point of view. Okay. Cause the judge will actually not have as thick of a docket if they implement common sense. So what I would do, not legal advice, what I would do if I were you is go into court regardless of what makes sense. Because what if it doesn't make sense that you're with your child more? What if you have to drive an extra 30 miles a day to spend time with your child? And you'll only get like 2 extra hours with your child. Now, I know a lot of you underdog parents, myself included, would gladly do all that driving. But some people will say that that doesn't make sense. And a judge, and you're leaving it up to the judge. The judge might say, well, that doesn't make sense. What if you get stuck at work? What if you get stuck in traffic? I'm not gonna abide by this. Slap, slap, slap. Get out of my courtroom. So you're not really, there's no protections. So common sense doesn't work in family court. What I would do instead is I would ask yourself, if you're having a problem, it might not be daycare. It might be like, maybe you're in a really bad situation. I had a parent reach out to me last week that the ex was locking the child in the bedroom. Okay. And I don't know what the legalities are with locking a child in the bedroom. It's probably illegal, but the parent couldn't get relief from the police. And I don't know if the parent's going to go to family court for this, but whatever the problem is, it could be extreme, like your child being locked in their bedroom. It could be not so extreme, like, hey, my ex's schedule changed. I want to spend more time with my child. Like, no one's in danger. You just want to see your child more. Whatever the case may be, ask yourself this question. Could this issue be mitigated if I was an equal parent? Okay. So let's just say you're with your child 50% of the time and your ex starts working 60 hours a week and your child goes to daycare and the daycare's close by and you want to see your child more, but you already have your child half the time. You're probably not going to care that much if your child's if you're with your kid half the time, your child's probably just going to be in daycare like 2 days a week plus 1 day every other week or something. So it wouldn't be like that big of a catastrophe. It wouldn't really be a big problem. But if you're with your child only every other weekend, that means your kids are stuck in daycare for like 10 hours a day. And that is a problem. So if you're with your kids half the time and or you had equal rights to your children, would you need to go to the court to ask for help if you were already an equal parent? Another thing is, if you're not an equal parent and you're forced to pay all this money because, the parents that are second-class citizens like me and you, we have to pay for our ex's decisions. If our ex puts our kids in soccer, you got to pay for that. If your ex puts your kid in daycare, you got to pay for that. So if you had equal say in what services your child is involved in, like soccer, daycare, and you had the right to opt out and say, well, I'm not paying for that, then your ex is going to be more limited with their options. So that's the thing. When we're treated as equals, it diminishes our ex's ability to do these big things like, soccer and expensive extracurriculars and trips, vacations, daycares, things like that. Even like medical procedures that you're oftentimes the parent's forced to pay for when they're the underdog parent. So anyway, another tangent. Let's keep the tangents down a little bit. So if you were an equal parent, would you really need to go to the court to fix the problem? Would you need to get relief from the court if you're already an equal parent? Most likely you're in this situation because you're not an equal parent. So what if instead of saying, hey, please fix this problem, instead of inviting the judge's discretion to fix a problem, what if you were just to approach the court and say, hey, I really want to be restored to an equal parent. I want to have the same rights to my child that I had before this relationship dissolved. And I want to have the same rights that all the other parents have. I have neighbors, I have aunts, uncles, cousins. They have full rights to their kids. I want the same rights that other parents have. I want to be treated like other parents. And so you can say that, and that could be a really solid legal argument. Not legal advice. This is just what I would do. This is what I have done. I want to be treated like other people. I want to be treated like similarly situated other fit parents, and fight from that angle, because that is a legal strategy that does have substantial case law that will back you up. You have constitutional law that will back you up on that. Lots of case law. If you don't believe me, I don't know if it's in this book. This is Ron and Sherry Palmer's book, Beginner's Guide to Family Law. I don't know how much case law they fight. They fight. I don't know how much case law they put in here. There's not much, but get their green book, not in the child's best interest, but this book is really amazing as well. It's called Beginner's Guide to Family Law. And then I'm going to mention one of their books in a couple minutes. So if you fought this from hey, I want to be treated like an equal parent, then you have something that you can actually go with. You could appeal. You could go to the Supreme Court, and you're laying groundwork to go to the highest court in the country, which is the United States Supreme Court. Because if you're asking for equal rights and you're getting deprived for no reason, and the only reason you're getting deprived is because your ex is saying, no, I don't want that. You could go to the highest court and say, the government took away my rights because somebody else asked them to. My ex asked them to. Is that legal? Since when do we do this? Do Black people get deprived of, equal schools because white people say that they don't want that? Do gay people, are they not allowed to get married because straight people don't like it, that don't want that? And so you have more to work with. So that's my point. Now, there is sometimes an advantage to asking for discretion, and that is if you really don't feel like fighting a whole lot, you're not really concerned with losing. If you feel like, well, I have nothing to lose. If the judge says no, then I have nothing to lose. So if you feel like you're not going to get hurt by asking for discretion, you can certainly do that. The risk, in my opinion, is that what if your ex comes up with a really crazy counterclaim and says, well, this person's abusive? Because for me, every single time I went and asked for equal rights, my ex came to court with these gigantic, accusations, and try to put me on supervised visitation. And so, if you think your ex is going to come in and have a gigantic laundry list of charges, and you don't feel like dealing with that, then maybe you don't want to ask for discretion on this issue. Maybe you would either just walk away and not worry about it at all, or go to court and say, I want to be an equal parent. So there is some advantages on asking for discretion if you don't think your ex is going to be crazy. And most of these narcissists are crazy. So I don't really think that's that viable of an option. But let's see here. I can't read my own writing. Not the first time this has happened. Okay. Yeah. So that's what I was going to say. If you're going to court to solve a problem, I don't really see judges ever issuing orders that reduces the conflict with the parents. I mean, it doesn't mean that like your ex isn't going to keep being a jerk. It's not really going to fix the real problems. I mean, the real issues is that you're parenting with a horrible ex. And if you're getting this one issue mitigated, is that really solving the big problem? And if you're going to take the time to go to court, why not fight for the big guns, fight for the big things, the things that you really truly care about. And that is that you want to be an equal parent. You probably wouldn't care about these issues if you were an equal parent to begin with. So another disadvantage of asking for the court's discretion is that a judge can make a plan C option, which I'm totally against, because it's my belief that a judge is there to settle disputes. So that means that they're supposed to pick person A or person B to side with. When a judge manufactures a third opinion, which is plan C, the judge is acting in an extrajudicial role. The judge is taking on an independent position in what they think is best for the child. And I'm 100% against that. I don't know why more parents don't fight against that. And I see judges doing this all the time, where they're granting relief that's not requested. For example, my ex never, ever, ever asked the judge to take away my religion, my right to teach my son my religion. He never said, don't let Monica teach our son her religion. And the judge put in their orders since day one, since 11 years ago, that I'm not allowed to teach my son my religion. And there's other things, like certain rules that the judge put on me that my ex never asked the judge to put into the orders. So when a judge takes on an independent role, they're taking on, they're acting in an extrajudicial fashion. They're not supposed to be child welfare experts. Okay. We don't need the judicial branch managing child welfare. We already have the executive branch doing that. And you're not supposed to mix these powers. You're not supposed to mix the powers. There's supposed to be the separation of powers. But anyway, that's another live stream. So again, I'm not a fan of ever asking for discretion. I would ask for protection. And if you're going to court, if someone's taking you to court, if your ex is filing a motion to do something bad to you, I would absolutely go in and ask for protection at all costs. Whoops, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Well, you know what? We're going to answer this question because I accidentally let it pop up. So that was meant to be. So someone says, if I restricted my sons from seeing her, I could be locked up in contempt, but my ex of my other two kids can, and DCF condones it. Yeah. So that's another thing. How do I get rid of your, okay. Not that I want to get rid of your comment. That was a mean way to say it. I'm sorry. So this parent says, if I restricted my sons from seeing her, I'd be locked up and in contempt. but my ex of my other two kids can, and DCF condones it. So again, if you're an equal parent, then the penalties apply equally, you know. And I'm in the same boat as you. In fact, we have a law in Connecticut that my husband actually helped pass, which is kind of ironic, where if a parent withholds the child from the other parent, that is considered like a quasi-criminal. I think it's like a Class D misdemeanor or something like that. But unfortunately, what these judges are doing is they're only applying it to the underdog parent, and that's exactly the opposite effect that we wanted this law to have. So it's Connecticut statute 53A-98 or 53-98A. It's one of those two. I'll look it up and I'll post it in the comments when I'm done. But one of those, so that law in Connecticut, and I believe the parent that wrote this is in Connecticut, so that actually is convenient, where if the parent withholds a child from the other parent, it's custodial interference, and it's like a misdemeanor. And again, like I said, the judges are only applying it to the non-custodial parent. So if the second class parent does it, we go to jail. If the first class parent does it, then they're just acting in the child's best interest. And for the longest time, my judge allowed my ex to withhold my son anytime he thought it was in my son's best interest, which was all the time. So there was long stretches of time I went without any contact with my 4 and 5-year-old. And so anyway, yeah. So if your ex is taking you to court to do bad things to you, I would ask for protections. What I see a lot, parents will contact me. Oh my God, I'm going to court next week. My ex has all these accusations about me. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I wrote down all the list of all the bad things my ex did. So we have parent A saying my ex did blah, blah, blah. And then we have parent B in response saying, well, you did blah, blah, blah. So both parents are asking the judge's discretion. The problem is that one parent is elevated to first class and the second parent is downgraded to a second class citizen. So it's Connecticut General Statutes 53A-97. Okay, 53A-97. Thank you so much. So when two parents are going to court and saying my ex did this bad thing and my ex did this bad thing, you're asking the judge to make you're asking for the judge's discretion, and B, you have two unequal parents that are doing this. So who's going to have the upper hand? The parent who's been getting the pat on the back since day one, they're going to have the upper hand. So get yourself to equal status. I would always recommend, before you go in complaining about your ex, I would always, always, always get yourself to equal status first. Make sure that you're equal on the books, and then you can complain about your ex if you want. But again, if you're equal, then your ex's behavior is not going to have that much of an impact unless there's legitimate child abuse. And in that case, you need to call the police. You know, in my opinion, not legal advice. So if your ex is just a jerk, you being an equal parent is going to mitigate your ex's assholeness, because you're going to have a good amount of time with your children to help offset that toxicity. So we need to have, another reason why we need to have equality is because when we do have that narcissistic parent ruining your children and like brainwashing them and tormenting them and stuff and making them feel bad about themselves, you have a healthy parent that is offsetting some of that toxicity. And we see this in married people's homes too. When we have mom and dad and they're still together, they're still married. We have one parent that's toxic and abusive and the other parent that is not. And so the child can often maybe hopefully grow up with some healthiness in them, you know, but when they're predominantly with the abuser, then that's not a good thing. So let me pull up my notes again here. So when I talk, I play with my bookmark all the time, so I always lose my place. So another thing I would do, absolutely do this. If your ex is taking you to court to try to get you punished or get you to do bad things, personally, I would just continue to ask for protections. I want protections. I want protections. I want protections, because it's the judicial branch's job to uphold, recognize, and protect your rights. So you can ask for protections. That's not waiving your rights. That's not asking for discretion. You're asking for protection. And when you're asking for protection, you're not inviting their discretion. And so just keep that in mind. When you're asking for legal protections, you're not asking for their discretion at all. And some people might say it's your attorney's job to protect your rights. Well, yeah, but still the attorney could ask the judge for protection. The attorney could say, protect this parent's fundamental rights. You know, that's your lawyer's job is to figure out the strategy, but you could still ask the judge for protection. But I think you could come up with your own strategy. You could just simply cite your rights. If you just memorize like your rights and say them, you're like 50% of the way there. Okay. And they're not that difficult to learn. You know, pick up one of Ron and Sherry's books, take my course, The Best Interest of the Parent. You can learn your rights. Like, it's not that difficult. And what's difficult is inviting discretion and trying to figure out what the judge is thinking, what the judge is going to do, how the judge is going to react. It's just like trying to read a judge, like trying to like predict in the future what a judge is going to think. I can't tell you how many Facebook posts I find where the parents like, is this going to make me look bad? Is the judge going to think I'm a bad parent if I do this? Is the judge going to not like it if I do this? And it's like, it really shouldn't matter because you don't want to invite their discretion. So, and now so there's a lot of parents that will say to me, but my ex is such a bad person. What they did to me was so deplorable. They hurt me. They hurt my child. They ruined my relationship with my child. You know, I have to go to the judge and complain about this. And I see this with like alienation claims, brainwashing, you know, the parent withholding. And, you know, if that is happening to you, I would sue them in federal court. And if you want to learn how to do this, this is where I'm going to bring up Ron and Sherry Palmer's other book called Oath Breakers. They teach you how to do that. They teach you how to sue your ex in federal court. Now, this has not yet been done, but that doesn't mean that you can't do it. Why can't you be that parent that does that thing? You know, Rosa Parks, before Rosa Parks did what she did, no one else had done that before. And well, actually one person did, but she was younger and she was pregnant and it was out of wedlock. So they didn't want to use her as the leader of the movement. So Rosa Parks was actually like the second person to do what she did. But no one had ever done that before Rosa Parks did her thing. So there has to be somebody has to do something at some point. So why can't it be you? Why can't you be that parent that sues your ex in federal court and wins and sets massive precedent for other parents? I mean, there's spots waiting for you. There's empty spots in the future, in the near future, waiting to be filled by parents like you. So what is stopping you from being that parent? What do you have to lose? You can lay massive groundwork for other parents to step into. And if you fail, then you're just making it easy for the next person to succeed. So you can do this. You can absolutely do this. I have no doubt in these parents at all. It's going to be one of us. We have another comment. Someone says here, my son is a victim of his mother, barely in the picture. Okay, so your son is a victim of his mother, barely in the picture. My two other kids without my son and their father. DCF should be criminally held accountable along with the mother. Okay, I'm so sorry that I'm not able to understand completely your comment, but yeah, it looks like there's a DCF situation. Not good. Okay, so that's what I have for you tonight. I want you to get comfortable with using your rights in court instead of asking the court to fix the problems for you. I'm dropping stuff on the floor. And so often what is a barrier for parents is that they're afraid. They're afraid to step into that role. They're not used to like having to take a stand, you know. Maybe at work, every time they voice their opinions, their boss laughs at them, or if they try to assert themselves in their intimate relationship, their partner shuts them down. Or maybe when they were kids, they would try to express their needs and their parents would shut them down, and they've never been heard, like they've never been honored, like their role has not been taken seriously. They haven't been respected in the past. So what they'll do is they'll take past stuff and they'll tie that into their decisions. They'll say, well, I'm not going to do this because no one cares. The system doesn't care. No one cares. It's not going to work. And they just they kind of go in with this mindset that I don't matter. My voice doesn't matter. But the best thing is that you could change that. You could decide today that you're not going to take on that role anymore. It's not working. Being like that doesn't work. Okay. That was me. I grew up, I spent 25, 30, 35 years in that frame of mind, and it doesn't work. It didn't get me anywhere. Right. So it's not true. And so stop making it true. And one way you can break out of these mindset blocks is to take my workshop. I have a workshop on this. It's absolutely free. And I'm going to post a link to it right here. And I want you to take advantage of this workshop. Okay. Hang on one second. Oops. So what's great about this is that it's free and it comes with a workbook, and it follows a 3-step formula. So the first step is to release your ex, make your ex not important because they're not. The second step is to release the system. The system does not have any control over you. The system only has as much control over you as you allow it. And then the third step to getting to this place is self-mastery. Talk to yourself a little bit better. Stop believing the thoughts that go through your head. It doesn't make them true. Here is the link. You should be able to click on it, I hope. If not, I'll go back and I will put the link in if it's not clickable. All right, so take my workshop. It's like 80 minutes long. It's free. Do I have to say that again, that it's free? And you can start to reframe your thoughts where you can do this. You can go to court and you could stop doing what everybody else has been doing for 50 years. You could take on a new paradigm in the system. The system is waiting for parents like us to do that. And then what's going to happen is when we start doing these things, like, taking a stand, the vendors like GAL's, attorneys for children, your own personal attorney, judges, they're going to be forced to be ethical because that's what the market is going to demand. When people start asking for services, the system is going to be forced to comply. That's how they stay marketable. That's how, the market works. We have the supply and demand curve. If the demand for ethical services goes up, then that supply is going to have to go up to meet that demand. We're not commanding these ethical services with attorneys. Where's their incentive to do things better? So we're not demanding a better work product. Okay. So do take advantage of that workshop, and we will meet up next Monday. Okay. Thanks so much for coming on. Have a good night.